Hi, everyone. I'm Shelley Lyle.
And I'm Brian Avery.
And welcome to Voices from the Field, a podcast brought to you by the Department of Sport Management at the University of Florida. This podcast was created to share the career journeys of sport industry professionals. Our hope is that you learn the ins and outs of sport industry professions. We're excited to be with all of you this week and with our special guest, Ed Buckley. Ed is the chairman and CEO of Peerfit and the vice president and board of directors for Balance 180.
So Ed received his bachelor's in public relations, master's in public health management and policy, and doctorate of philosophy in digital health behavior from the University of Florida. Go Gators, absolutely. A triple threat at this point. So I like that, right? So while attending Florida, he was a graduate research assistant for the UF Department of Health Behavior and a group fitness instructor for Gainesville Health and Fitness. Ed is currently a contributing writer for Get Your Fit Together, the VP and board of directors for Balance 180, and chairman and CEO of Peerfit. Thank you for being with us today, Ed.
Thank you for having me. Go Gators. Appreciate being here today.
Yeah, triple Gator. I think you might be our first triple Gator.
This is the first triple Gator.
It sounds like a great move someone does on the diving platform. And here he goes. He'll be performing the triple Gator.
I think Rodney Dangerfield did the triple Lundy or something like
triple
that.
Lundy.
The triple Lundy. There we go. Yeah, a triple Gator. How many years were you here, out of curiosity?
So my undergrad I did in 3 years. Okay. Then I left Gainesville, went up to Atlanta where my father lives, came back, did my master's in 2 years, and then did my PhD. I was there for about 3.5, 4 years. So, all in Gainesville. Probably end to end was about a decade. A Van Wilder, as I like to call it.
I love it. I love the Van Wilder.
Yeah, and Ed, because funny for those listening, Ed and I actually went to UF together and had lots of mutual friends, hung out. And so curious, how many sporting events did you attend?
Let's see. So I was the MC for gymnastics, right back when we won back-to-back national championships. So I went to every one of those because I was required to, and I loved doing that. Shelley, right? We were good friends on soccer. Roommate was a soccer player. Roommate was a soccer employee. Dated someone on the soccer team. So darn well went to a lot of those as well. Probably, and then we've got lots of Peerfit employees that are from the UF softball team. So that those inroads were made back going to all the softball. So probably not the usual sports, right? A lot of people are football, baseball. I was swimming, soccer, softball, really supporting. I think all the sports. Hell, on my 21st birthday, I painted myself up and went to a cross-country meet because Lindsay Sundell, my friend, was running, and it was on UF campus because, they don't have a lot of meets that you can go to. So woke up the morning of my 21st birthday, very dehydrated, and painted myself up and went to support. So had a lot of friends, and, it was great to support all the athletics and really just, the school.
Yes, Ed was quite the Gator fan, and also so supportive of everybody in the program, and we all kind of ran in all the same circles. So yes, that is one thing I really remember, and why I asked is just how integrated you were into the sports world, even though you weren't necessarily on a team. Always appreciated. And also always had a lot of energy. I mean, he's got energy. That is one thing he brings to every environment.
No, I was hoping you won some sort of spirit award. I mean, the painting yourself alone deserves a recognition on some grand scale, in my opinion.
I think I convinced people to paint themselves for, indoor gymnastics meet once, nice. Actually twice, cross country and soccer. So I've been painted at a number of them. And Shelley, I think the first class we took like a Russian culture class, I think, together. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think it's
actually where we met.
But you're so right. I totally forgot. That's like the one Russian course culture. I dropped. That was it.
Yep. Learned a lot.
Yeah, you made it through that one though, right?
I did indeed. I actually believe the class was in HHP, the building, right? It was one of the late nights.
Stadium. It was one of the stadiums seated. Mm-hmm. That's so funny. I forgot about that. Wow, we really go back, don't we? All right, so let's talk a little bit about your career journey. Yeah, thanks again for being here. We're excited to hear. Yeah, you've had quite the journey since being on campus to where you are now. So can you share a little bit about, starting in college and to where you are now, what your journey's been like, and then when did you know you wanted to work in the health and wellness space? We'll start with those questions.
Yeah. I think I always knew I wanted to be in that area. I, worked at Gainesville Health because I've loved physical activity. It's been a part of my life since forever, right? And not just, I want to do it to be in good shape, right? I've always loved what physical activity can do for your body mentally, physically, emotionally, and all of that. That's always been a big part of my life. I knew health was something I was passionate about. In fact, when I was looking to do my undergrad, whether I was going to do, PR or across the street do health education, my thought was, well, I'm already going to voluntarily learn things or do a minor over at health ed. So let me focus on communication, something I don't know the formal practice of, because I'll fill in the content with the health stuff. So I knew right from the get-go, health was going to be important. And, my advice to everyone in college, and I took it myself, was go to something that's going to give you a framework that you can then apply to different industries, right? I knew communications structurally was going to be important. Like I said, filling in that content of health, or whether I'd gone into finance or something, you can do that. The part about starting the company that was interesting was I've now found 3 separate companies, and all of them have something to do with health, physical activity. One of them still there in Gainesville. Shout out to Balance 180, just a fantastic nonprofit organization started by 2 people who work, both over at the VA and then an academic professor there on campus. So it's always just been something I've been passionate about, and I guess been fortunate enough to let my passion drive me and to go into things that interest me and also can serve to be a good career choice. I know some people are forced to make the decision, do what you love or do what makes you money, and I've been very fortunate to build them together and do that. I mean, I remember my master's thesis presentation was actually on the idea of Peerfit, and my professors said, they have got like a panel of professors said, this isn't Shark Tank, Ed. This is school. So, it's interesting because at that time, I can't speak to it today, but at that time, the university really wanted to be embracing more futuristic innovation, kind of progressive ways of thinking about what the university should be used for. And while the people down the hill said, this isn't Shark Tank, the people up the hill, right, over at HHP were the ones who said, I love that you're doing that. Please come up here and do your PhD on this topic. This will be fantastic for you. So it was just a great opportunity to further my education, further my skill sets, and kind of sharpening what I could learn to do, while also filling in, once again, the content at that point with what Peerfit was becoming. And the thing that got me out of Gainesville was, for those of you who know the academic journey, what happens when you're doing a PhD, at some point, you're no longer really needed on campus. You're just writing and researching. And at that exact time, we had gotten a investment from Florida Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida. And they said, but in order to take it, you need to come down to Tampa for 4 months. And at that point, I was just literally sitting in Gainesville, writing and researching. So I was like, all right, well, I've been here for a decade, so sure, let me go down to Tampa. And I loved it, and haven't really come back. I absolutely love it here in Tampa. I went back up there for graduation and to defend and all of those things, but it's been a wild journey so far. That's for sure. In fact, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary here at Peerfit, strangely enough. Wow. That's how I've gotten these gray hairs that you can't quite see. So.
That's awesome. And what, tell us a little bit about Peerfit, and then what your position entails, the duties and kind of your role. I don't know if all of our students will know right offhand what that looks like. And I think it's really unique, right? The way you've created the organization in this space.
Sure. So at Peerfit, it's a pretty simple concept. There are health plans, right? Think of Aetna, Cigna, kind of your traditional health plans that people have. We built the mechanism that allows them to pay for their members to go to fitness experiences and be able to track, fund it. So, I personally have Aetna through our employer, Peerfit, right? It's our employer sponsored insurance. And they pay for me to go to boot camp, to go to cycling, to go to yoga, to stream workouts. We're the ones that built that mechanism to happen. And so when we got into the game a few years ago, really it was about maybe they had money set aside for you, but you'd have to go join a gym for 12 months. You'd have to print out receipts. You'd have to what a pain, right? So we figured that if we could broaden their network to be gyms, studios, streaming, and then we could make it a digital reconciliation process that it's automatic, that happens behind the scenes. What a novel idea. And then the peer, where the peer comes from, is really a health behavioral, kind of sentiment from my academic times, which is I can tell Shelley all day long, hey, being physically active is good for you. Well, notice how many people are not physically active. This is not an education gap, right? It's a motivation gap. But when you put two people together, or there's a group working out, they have significantly higher retention rates, right? You are more likely to stick with physical activity. Group fitness, for instance, is the number one reason why people join a gym and leave a gym is that. So we knew that was the sticky point, that if we could build around that aspect, it's both good public health policy as well as just a great commercial value prop. So, we knew that we wanted to try to build like this ubiquitous access for people in small pods to go to multiple places together, which, at that time, if you think about the three of us work together, the three of us probably all had different gym memberships or different fitness routines. Well, now universally, we all have the same access to all of these places. And when I, go on my phone and reserve, I can kick it to Shelley and say, I'm going here. Do you want to go with me? Right. So that was really the mechanism that we built. We did under 65 years old. Right. So we look at population from an age perspective. Under 65 group insurance was the foundation of the company for years. Then about 3 years ago, our health plan said, we love working with you. I wish you'd build a version of yourself for the over 65 space, the Medicare Advantage space, where they already have really legacy gym network programs that are very stale. And so kind of got dragged into that space. And honestly, it's been amazing going in that space, because when you think about the people you help, these are people who really need routines, good reasons to get out of the house, be around others, be physically active. You can really have impacts on that, population far more than maybe a 25-year-old who's going to be active anyways. They're going to be okay, right? So we loved that. We loved that space. We launched that 3 years ago. It's called Peerfit Move. It was really almost like a whole new company for us. And in just a few short years, it's just below 50% of our business now from a population and revenue perspective. It's doubled every single year since we got into it. So while the main company took 10 years to get up to this revenue point, launching Peerfit Move has gotten there in just a really short amount of time. So we've been very, very happy getting into that space, helping that space. There certainly are challenges. If you think dealing with health plans is difficult, wait till you deal with Medicare. So, you've got a lot more regulations. And Todd Sauter, our chief growth officer, always makes the joke, before we went into that market, the only thing we knew about Medicare was how to spell it. So we're very happy that we've become very educated and in that space. But that's what we do at Peerfit. It's just, how do we connect payers, their members, and great fitness experiences, and just make that as seamless as a process as possible. COVID was interesting because physical gyms closed their locations, but luckily we still had that network. We still had those dollars. So when people went and did Zoom classes, we were still able to fund that for people. Last year during COVID, we did a major transaction and sold off a piece of the company. And part of that was because of what our network was able to do during COVID. And it's been a wild ride. We've raised $50 million in venture capital. We've got the owner of the Celtics, who was on our board for a number of years, the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning, on our board, and is a major investor. And that's why I've got Celtic stuff and Lightning stuff behind me. So we've gotten to meet some just really impressive people, have great health plan partners, have a lot of great members out there. And like I said, now we're in 2 segments.
Very cool. And do you, what's your role look like now? Like, are you in charge of outsourcing some of the going to the gyms and finding them? Or are you more on building, raising capital, raising funds, that kind of stuff?
Well, luckily, knock on wood, we don't really need to raise capital anymore. So that was definitely my bread and butter. I was the one who did that. So luckily, we don't have to be in that position from a growth perspective at this time. We've got an amazing team at this point. There's a team who solely works on the fitness partnerships, right? There's a team who solely works on our health plan partnerships. So really, I'm there to kind of help point where the future's at, fuel people up with motivation, make sure we have the right resources, and then get the heck out of their way, right? That's really what I'm there to do, because if I'm in the weeds for too long, I am a disruptor by nature and will be very disruptive. So our team needs to build processes and stick to processes. So it's best me being at the top end of the macro rather than the micro side of the spectrum.
It's amazing. I'm just thinking, you went 10 years in academics, and then you made this transition to industry as a leader, a CEO, in a company that's become very successful very quickly. How has that transition been for you? What's this learning curve been like? And what kind of insight could you share for a possible entrepreneur in the making that is in the academic space right now?
Well, clearly it was my Russian culture classes that I took at the University of Florida that set me up to be such a great executive. Look, I didn't take business classes at, school. I read a lot. You just try to learn a lot. I think it's a mentality, mindset more than anything. Here's what I would say. I was never very liked in the academic setting. I always had this kind of spirit and passion. And so it isn't, which side were you not, the ugly duckling on, right? I'm not in the business side, and people are like, oh man, we got this academic guy around. In fact, I don't think a lot of people even know that I have my PhD that I do business with.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
The academic side was definitely not the side that appreciated my particular skill sets, and nor should it have been, right? If you think about what you have to do to maintain processes, to be, have great academic integrity and what you got to hold people to, as I mentioned, I'm a disruptor by nature. That's not something that's really conducive to that ecosystem. So I didn't have nearly as hard as a jump going into the business side, because I just was able to be me, and I'm okay making mistakes and learning. Maybe that's where the school side paid off. I'm a student by nature and will continue to be a student forever. And that sets the DNA of the whole company, which is, no one's ever done learning. We're always here to get better. And, so I think that's been a great aspect for the company and the culture.
Yeah, no, and that leads me to my next question is, as the CEO, how have you evolved as a leader, an innovator, and as a person in that role? That's a high pressure role. And I know a lot of people are always, looking to you for answers. And how do you deal with that? How do you overcome some of the obstacles that have been put in your way you had said a minute ago, the Medicaid and the difficulties around that, how did you navigate that water so that you could unpack it so it made sense, not just to you, but to those around you?
So I'm going to use a university analogy here, right? Since we're talking Gator to Gator. And there are people that are great football players. There are people who are great coordinators. And then there are people who are great head coaches. And we incorrectly say, well, if you're a great player, then you should be a coordinator. And if you're a great coordinator, then you should be a good head coach. And that's not the case always, right? I think that my personality and how I deal with stress and how I enjoy changing things would be an absolutely terrible fit almost anywhere else in the org. So I don't think I could have risen through a company to become where I am.
Okay.
I leaped right over into one that was uniquely, and vice versa. I've got people in our org chart that are the absolute best at what they do, but I think put in my position would not do really well, right? So it's just all about a fit. I think the things that set me up for success were I'm just naturally very passionate about this sector, right? Which is really, really important. I came from a military family. We moved a lot. I was used to change. I was used to circumstances changing, and you just got to move forward. You can't sulk on what was or what's being taken away from you. Yeah. So I think that was always very, very beneficial for me. And I've had great mentors, great coaches along the way. To your question about how I've progressed, I was a terrible leader 10 years ago. Right. I was very, very passionate about what I did. My mentor at that time used to call me a bulldozer, and I absolutely was. Like I was not good at it. And then, when I tried to soften my ways, then I became inconsistent. So I don't think that also led a great standard for people. So certainly, we all try to be better every year, that goes by, every calendar year. And I'd like to certainly think that Ed 35.0, that I am is certainly a better one than when I started the company, or even frankly a few years ago.
I love your perspective on things, Silver. This is fun. So aside from that, before you began your career or your journey in general, whether education or not, what is something you wish you had known that would have made it easier for you?
So I've been asked this type of question before, and I'm going to give you an answer that you're not going to like.
Fair.
It doesn't really matter. Much like physical activity, people don't do it not because they don't know it's good for them. They're just undisciplined to stick to it, right? Or it's not motivating enough. There were plenty of things that I was told that I wasn't ready to absorb. I wasn't mature enough to execute. So I think back, and I'm still being taught the same lessons that I was being taught 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. I just have a better perspective, or more mature, or more capable to do them. I think I was being told the same things then that I was doing now. And so if the question were to be, well, which ones have you followed that have actually worked out well for you? Delegating is really important, right? There's some platitudes that you hear about all the time, like, hi, don't be the smartest person in the room. Absolutely. Find great people around you, motivate them, get the heck out of their way. That's, I think, the things that have worked out, and just don't take yourself too seriously, right? If the person at the top can laugh at themselves, make fun of themselves, then everyone else can too.
Fair. No, and you're wrong. I love that response. That's fantastic. I feel your pain. I've been in your shoes in that regard before I was an academic, and I respect. Sometimes you just can't digest it, and I think that's the bottom line. You're just not ready. So I think you just hit that nail on the head. Thank you.
And I always want to, I don't know, as you're talking, make sure we include the fact that you're one of the things I remember about you too is your ability to network. Like when you were in your energy, like you were bringing people with you. Like you go out places and knows everyone. Like, and so you have that ability to draw in the crowds and engage in people in their spaces. So I can imagine, I just see as you're talking about your growth in Peerfit and how it works, just how those skills also get fine-tuned into how you are today, and what's made you really successful, I would imagine.
We've probably hired more University of Florida athletes than most employers out there. I mean, you're right. We absolutely have done a great job of keeping a network. That early core group of Peerfit, all basically came from 3 employers, and they were all groups that I had worked with before, and we brought them along, and we brought them along, and I was just in a meeting earlier, Shelley, with Megan Mersch, but previously Megan Bush, right, from the softball team. And, that's one thing that I think it's probably from moving so much as a kid, right? It's just being really effective at building networks and wanting people to be around and be around together. I'm still the same way today. If I'm going out, I want to bring a big group and make sure everybody has a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're the head of it and you're having fun, people below you are also having fun.
That's right.
No question. And so when did you, I don't think we talked on this yet. When did you know you wanted to create Peerfit? It sounds like you did your thesis on it, but how did you get that idea? I mean, that was a forward thinking kind of movement you've created. And so I am curious before I, ask about resources, where it started.
Yeah, my philosophy on starting a company is you should never seek to be an entrepreneur, right? Like the fact that you have an academic major on entrepreneurship is very interesting to me, because it's like, well, how do you know the lessons that an entrepreneur needs? Because like really you got to start with this obsession, this problem, this passion on something. And I suppose then you could give them the right tools of finance and all these other things. Then I would just call that a business degree, right? Like things you need to be good in business. But look, I was obsessed with this problem. I worked at Gainesville Health, right? I worked at a gym. I was working a couple other places. I knew group fitness needed really to be modernized. We thought at the time that the health payer component of it would be a piece of the business. We never thought it would be the business, right? So I was just obsessed with this problem. I was obsessed with researching about it and doing all of, everything related to it. And it eventually morphed into a company. So that's what I would say. I think about life after Peerfit one day. I absolutely will start another company or several companies, but it's because I've already thought of things that are problems that I'm obsessed with. I wouldn't start it and be like, well, I'm done and I need to start another company now, so let me start one and figure out what's a good business. I'm sure there are people out there that could be successful that way. You got to know, how you're wired, and this is the way that I'm wired, and the only way that I've found to be successful.
And what are the best resources that you've used and utilize now in the fitness industry, in the programs you're creating?
I think one of the coolest things about this industry right now, and I think about all of HHP there, right? You've got really interesting departments, and really all of them could be going into our industry, because our industry is obviously not just health plans, but it's also great fitness experiences. But digital health as a whole is really just, like I said, digitizing the landscape of all types of activities that people are working on from HHP. And it's making the ability to start a company and grow a company and connect with other companies so much more effective and closing the dots between them. So, when I got started, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know how to raise capital. I just talked to everyone. Shelley, shocking, I know. I just literally talked to everybody about this idea I was working on. And kind of the universe helped guide me to people. People would say, well, have you met so-and-so? They're great with helping with startups. Well, have you met so-and-so? They're great at, investing in early stage companies. And I just go back to, like, if you're working on something you're passionate about, you want to talk about it all the time. And if you talk about it all the time, then the universe will kind of help point you to the people you need to talk to. But I'm sure the University of Florida has great formal resources that people can go to, the link above, right? Like, whatever link or department there is there. But I certainly didn't really go through that process. I didn't go to business school, and just kind of made it on our own.
Yeah, I love that though. It's unique and a fresh perspective to an unorthodox plan. But I mean, look where you've gotten to take it. And from, like you said, though, I love that you're like, well, I was passionate about it, so of course I wanted to talk about it. I was engaging, you're reading, so people, I think, by human, like nature is to, like, oh, well, if they care about something I care about, like, we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to refer you to somebody else. And we talk about that with our students. Like, how are you networking? How are you having conversations? How are you staying relevant in the industry? It's not just, applying for a job. I think there's a lot to it as well, which, like you explained, by nature happens when you are having those conversations, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think we ever got help because I was trying to work the system, right? It's interesting. I can get that factually. You can see that I've been an effective networker, right? By the number of people that we all knew or whatever, but I never networked like to do that. It was just always the cause and effect of always wanting to be around people and talk to people and include as many people as possible, right? It really was a cause and effect rather than networking to network. People can people can sense that, right? They can see when they're trying to, you're just a rung in the ladder to them of trying to get to where you need to go. And people don't want to help you when you do that. However, when you are genuine, people want to help people. It's just, it's in our nature by and large.
Yeah. And it's true too. Like people do see through others, especially those who've been in the industry a while. It's like, oh, yep, the same conversation. I've had this one 12 times.
Yep.
And I do think people want to hire genuine people who are truly passionate about, this, whether they were getting paid a lot of money or not. I mean, this industry is very competitive, as you know, as a whole, So when it comes to people who've really impacted your life, who's been the most influential? Maybe there's a few that you would name, and how have they helped and or impacted your career trajectory?
I would say if you broke up the 10 years at Peerfit, I'll just use Peerfit for instance, right? Because I was in school for the first part of it still. Each kind of quarter of that journey, I had a completely different set of mentors or coaches for what you need at that stage. And it really is, I mean, this might not sound overly believable, but like each stage, you have to completely reinvent yourself. You need completely different skill sets around you when you're growing a company, right? When it's just an idea, you need X. Okay, when you've got an idea and you're trying to take it to market to get your first couple of sales, you need Y. All right, when you've got your first couple of sales and you're trying to get to 100,000 or 500,000, this to get it from 1 million to 10 million is a completely different, right? So it's like very different. So I've been very fortunate that along the way I've had people that are willing to help me and are willing to step up when I need them and kind of sit passively when I don't need them. We've got our board today, we've got people who've been on there for a number of years and have been helping me since before they were on the board, right? Like Jim Phillip has helped me long before he was ever on the board, right? Mark Blumenthal has been there for years. Lee Arnold. So these are guys that have helped me along the way. I think my father's a great person who I've always looked up to, and we don't have the same personality by any means, but I always look at him as just, he's a great person, and it kind of reminds me to try to be a good person like him, and he's a far better person than I am. But I think every person you're with, you can get a little something from them, no matter what they do. Maybe they do something right, and it's good to always be growing, learning, listening, and I do a lot of reading. Probably read 2 to 3 books a month, and they're all nonfiction. They're all about people, and that's something that I always try to just take in.
That's great.
No, it's very insightful and helpful for our student body. Over the last 20 years, I mean, obviously 10 in the fitness space, but the previous 10 as an academic, how have you seen the industry grow, and what kind of change in the health and wellness industry are you expecting in the future?
It is surprising to me how much this new wave of digital innovation requires really, really smart academics. So when I think about, let's call it 5-ish years ago, they needed great technologists, right? I'm taking a previously known concept or structure and we're just digitizing it. Okay. So I view really that's what we did, right? We viewed something that was a net known network, reimbursement, digitizing it, right? But when I think about the companies that are growing the fastest, that are the biggest in our space, Whoop, Aura, Peloton, right? So they are gobbling up researchers. They're gobbling up academics with letters after their names because the digitizing, it's already done or it's much easier to do. So now they're trying to think through, where are we going? What's the academic structure of what we will be building off of this, right? Everything is a kind of TikTok back and forth. Right. And so we needed to digitize things. Okay, now they have. So now they need to build a new future. Then they'll build concepts and eventually they'll go back to, right? So we'll get there of expansion, contraction, and reinforcement. But that's what I'm seeing is that actually academics are surprisingly in a lot of really successful digital health startups and growth companies right now.
Okay, that's very interesting. Outside of that, considering our student population, how can they prepare? I mean, obviously you say the academic is going to be a heavy influence in that industry, but let's say you have a student who wants a bachelor's degree or master's, doesn't want to go after the PhD. How can they prepare themselves for a direction in this industry, since it's rapidly evolving?
Yeah, the most successful, let's call it young 20s, late 20s that I've seen enter into the market are ones that are taking the opportunity outside of the classroom to become experts and show other people that they're experts. So, Shelley, we were just talking about networking. There are two types of people on LinkedIn, right? that you watch. There are people that are clearly on LinkedIn to get noticed and gobble up people, right, so that they can use you to get a job. And there are people that just love interacting with content, sharing their opinion on content. Those people that, it helps you take someone who's an entry-level person and interact with a CEO or an industry expert, right? Where else can you do that? So I think that if you are becoming an industry expert, reading, producing content, sharing that content, interacting with people, using your phone for something other than Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok, you could be really, making yourself known and really helping yourself out.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, and I I love it. And we talk about LinkedIn. We've done some videos for our students on it, but it is true. There are different types of people on LinkedIn and what they use it for. But I love that you brought up Aura and Whoop, because I find them so interesting. Especially Whoop, because I used it in the soccer team. We used it for a year or so, and there's just use stories you would love. But anyways, I think that industry too, as you're talking about it, is so up and coming and seeing all the changes. I mean, this just seems like a start of what's to come and how that will start getting integrated even collegiately as well as professionally. The monitoring of heart rates and all of the stats and, our bodies basically.
I mean, let's take it to a whole nother level here, right? Forget about how amazing it's going to transform our personal health, knowledge, actionability, right? All that. This past weekend on a golf tournament on TV, Whoop sponsored where you could watch Rory's heart rate while he swung the golf club, right? Think of the entertainment. This is a digital health company that is now bleeding into entertainment. It is amazing what's opening up now. And the thing that I think about, like, as I think about the next wave of companies and where we're going, right? Because it's something we're always thinking about. It's like the cyborgs are here. We're already cyborgs. So no longer is the problem of the companies being started, how do I get people to use this product, done. So now the question becomes, now that so much data is being created, then what? Do you go the next level deeper and create deeper, richer data? Do you then do something like the question changes now because the table's already been set. There's already products producing rich health data. Whereas, like I said, 5 years ago, the problem being solved was, how do I produce rich health data? It's done.
Yeah. So interesting, right? I mean, yeah, it's always, I'm so curious for so many reasons how it's going to integrate into the sports industry specifically, what's going to stay, right? What's going to hold and what's going to change to something else and morph and be, because this is such a side tangent, but let's just go here. From a collegiate perspective with like a Whoop band or things like that, they will monitor you and where you are, how you, and all your heart rate. So technically you can be monitored and that in what's allowed in that, right? Like,
so okay. I was going to go there. Imagine not Shelley. Shelley was a very good athlete and did not party. And I'm not just saying that, but there were certainly people that were influenced by me who would come out and party with me, when they probably should not have. When does the Whoop monitoring stop, right? Do they get to see you when you're out at grog? Oof. What about, on the weekends do they get to? What about during the off season? How much do they own you? I mean, it's going to become an ethical question. That to me will be one of the greatest ethical questions of our time. Now that health data is rich and ubiquitous, Who should have access? I know a lot of people can, I know maybe a lot of people are right now, but should they have access? And that'll be something that I think we'll go too far on and then pull it back, right? Natural homeostasis, you go above the line and then, you fix it. I think we'll be too broad with the ownership of that data, and we might already be. And then we will morph it so that the right people have it at the right time and don't the rest of the time.
Yeah. Just stay tuned, everyone. Stay tuned, right? And when you, especially for our students and relating, not all of them are going to start businesses, but those years, can you speak to those years before you started Peerfit and when you're in school, when you're working for Gainesville Health and Fitness, and how important those were to where you are now? So a lot of our students going into the industry right after university might not, get to where you are, but I think we underestimate the value of just the growth process.
Yeah. So I would say of the longest tenured people at Peerfit, almost all of them were connections that were made at the university, working at Gainesville Health and Fitness. We knew that Gainesville Health was such a well-run company that we could hire out of there and immediately know that we're going to have people that are hardworking, well-disciplined. So, you think about being in Gainesville, you've got really an A-plus school from a talent perspective. You've got great businesses around it that you can continue to draw on. The network you build there will continue to be useful to you long after you're gone, right? I mean, like I said, I look at the longest tenured people. They're all people that we got to know in Gainesville. And here they are. And we've had several cycles through, right, as an organization, because, we've been at this 10 years and to see the people at the top. One of them was I came and spoke to their class at HHP, and they applied for a part-time internship, which then turned to full-time, and now department head. So you just never know who you're going to get exposed to. So yes, the speakers that come and talk to your classes might eventually hire you if you, and that came via Dr. Pig, who I know isn't at the school anymore, but that came from that student reaching out to Dr. Pig and saying, I loved what I learned. Could I get introduced afterwards? And Dr. Pig, who asked me to come speak, making that introduction. So, if you have a good relationship with your, academic staff and faculty, they can help you.
Yeah. I love these plugs. It's really helping us out. It's really throwing some softballs up. Okay. And then on a little personal note, you're in this, the health and wellness industry, but what do you do to stay healthy? But I don't use the term balance anymore, because I think in this industry, there's no real definition for balance, but how do you stay healthy in a high paced, high pressure environment? What are ways you can maybe disconnect when you need to, so you can stay at a high rate?
So I go on a lot of walks. Actually, I do it throughout the day, just quick 10, 20-minute walk. I've done this for as long as I can remember, actually, during my dissertation writing, just, go on walks. I do a lot of it. It's amazing for your body. It's amazing for your mind. Sometimes I use it to talk to people on the phone. Sometimes I use it to listen to a podcast, or listen to Audible, to listen to a book. Sometimes I'll do nothing, right, and just think during it. But it's been one of the single greatest things for me that I've done. I do it all the time. I went and saw my dad in Atlanta over the holiday break, and I remember it was pouring rain outside, so I just paced around through the house, and he thought I was a psycho. But yeah, so I just, I think it's really good just to get away, and once you don't have to walk fast, you don't have to run, just be a bit active, helps your mind. Other than that, I do a lot of group fitness classes. I'm doing one as soon as we wrap up this interview, and I try to be very social. I see my friends, go out to eat, go out and grab drinks. It's incredibly important just to get out and talk to other people, even if they have nothing to do with your industry. Just see other people and talk. You never know what's gonna, be an inspirational moment.
And it's some good insight, and I know Shelley's talking about the balance aspect, but vastly important to just understand you got to disconnect, unplug. Change the scenery, and it will do wonders for your health and your mind. So you had mentioned, yeah, totally. You had mentioned a moment ago that, the networking that created in the classroom environment, and the student reaching out to you and wind up with a position and ultimately a department chair role in your organization, which is awesome. And that's what we're trying to teach our students is you need to reach out, you need to build relationships, network, make sure they know you, you know them, and you continue that conversation. So when it comes down to the time to hire them, though, what are you looking for in that student? What qualifications, what degree, background, experiences, things like that, personalities, if you will, that would align with an organization like yours?
I suppose all of us in life hire and associate the things that we deem important, right? It's not that it's important to the universe, but it is to me. Therefore, if I see someone who reflects that, it must be important, right? I always valued as a student, I'd rather get a B in the class, but have great knowledge and grasp of it to talk about it, command it, than people who I would see studied to the test and get an A and had no mastery of the concepts, right? Very few companies that I'm aware of really care about your GPA, right? They care about your mastery of the concept. And so that's what I've always looked for is, can I have a conversation with you on this topic, right? And in doing so, do you seem like you're someone who is open to input, right? Thus, you must be open to coaching. You're someone who seems like you just went to school to get through school and get a grade, or regardless of your grade, can you talk to me about what you studied and the implications of what that means for a company like us, right? That's what we care about. And it goes back to the LinkedIn thing, right? If you are out reading about things in the industry and learning about it so that you can create your own thoughts on that and create your own content on it, well, then you've got some drive, you've got some interest and passion in this. That's what matters to me. I've had a lot of people who have great, academic resumes, but frankly, they were just looking for a job so that they could have one. And it didn't matter if I hired them or somebody else did. I'm very, very offended and triggered when, they're not hired. But we're not looking to hire the best on paper. We're looking to hire the one that for us in this industry, in this role, really wants to be here and wants to work to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm sensing a theme based on the conversation we've had so far of authenticity. Just be real, be aligned with what it is that you want out of life, and make sure that you're passionate. And I completely agree. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're going to fail or struggle immensely and find no joy in it.
Or be miserable. You'll be miserable.
Absolutely. No, I can sense through you. You love what you do. And we need to make sure that our students are aware, be in alignment, or you're going to struggle. So I really appreciate that message you've delivered for us today. Aside from that, how can students connect with you in some way? If they wanted to reach out to you and start a conversation, what methods would you be open up for content?
Sure. So Peerfit as a company is very active on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, right? All those traditional ones. My most active platform is LinkedIn, actually. Okay. I love it. It's where I go to read every day, and I get a lot of messages on there. But professionally, I'm on LinkedIn. Not that there's really any line between me personally and me professionally, because I'm just Peerfit. But I'm also on Instagram. Those are probably the two most that I'm on nowadays. So
awesome. No, that really appreciate it. Hopefully, some students will reach out and connect with you and further this conversation and start establishing a relationship of some sort. So this question stumps some, so I will throw that out for you. If you could step into the shoes of a UFSPM student or HHP student, just the UF community at large, what would you ask yourself that we did not ask you today that would be important to their journey?
I would say, if you could do it all again in 2021, what would you study? Right? What's the most important curriculum sets of classes that you'd study today to be ready for tomorrow? Right? And I joke about this with Shelley, right? We took Russian culture. Do you know why I took that class? Right? I took it because it was so different than anything else. And all the classes we were taking were just check the box classes. And so my retort back would be, while being innovative, having some knowledge about how, data science is very useful to anyone, understanding basic coding and developing is very important, right? Communication skills are important because I don't care how smart you are, if you can't communicate it, you're not going to get very far. I think finding unique classes that are conversation starters that give you just a differentiation is what I would look for more than anything. I find human behavior very interesting, hence what I studied right at school. I found like my generation was mortified if they matched each other. So if you and I went out and we're in the same shit, they're like, oh my gosh, the generation that's in school right now is mortified if they're not matching each other, right? And so that's what I would just call you to find something to actually be different and to stand out and be proud of it.
I love that response. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think it was great. And also, I'd like to know about the Russian. I was so curious why you ended up taking that course, because I was like, who signs up? I'm Russian. So that's why I was interested in taking it. But thanks for clarifying on that one.
I said, what do I know nothing about that could possibly be useful one day? And I'm like, Russia's kind of a problem for the U.S. I at least want to know something about them.
That's awesome.
To fit into this conversation, I spent 30 days in Russia, so I feel a sense of understanding it. That's
like a great blog title.
Yeah. No. I spent 30 days in Russia. There were some stories, that's for sure. So aside from that, though, now on Voices from the Field, we've got this opportunity to do a little fun, right? We don't want it to be all, difficult concepts. And
I've hoped we've had fun the last 15 minutes.
No, you know what I'm saying, but I mean, like these intense conversations about professional development and whatnot. This takes it to a new level. It's this rapid fire Q&A that we do, chock full of lighthearted questions. So, Shelley, you want to go ahead and begin?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I got my 1-minute timer and I have all my questions. So we're just going to see how many you can answer in 1 minute. Are you ready?
Of course. Is that the first question?
No.
There you go.
And go. When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Astronaut. Absolutely loved it. I met Neil Armstrong.
Oh, wow.
Favorite sport to play?
Ooh, I guess the only sport I really do now is tennis, which I'm terrible at, and running, if that's a sport.
Okay. What's the worst haircut you've ever had?
Oh, probably back when I was at college, people would say. Grew my hair out long. It's great. I loved it. People didn't.
Favorite zoo animal?
Tiger, no doubt.
Awesome.
First job?
Lifeguard.
What phone app do you waste the most time on?
Oh, Instagram. If it's wasted, yeah.
Current hobby?
What?
Current hobby?
Tennis.
If I looked up your most played songs, what song or artist would I see?
A lot of 80s and 70s. Get some Phil Collins in there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. What makes you laugh the most?
Stupid things. Really dumb things.
All right. And time. Awesome. Thanks so much.
How many do you normally get through?
It just depends. Some people get like 4 or 5, but some people get 9 or 10. You were up in that 8, 9. I think you got 9. Yeah. So right. Yeah, you did great. And then
I'm in the upper echelon. That's what I care about.
You're
not competitive at all.
No question. And I will fun fact the favorite zoo animal has outstandingly been the giraffe. I think you are one of 2 other people who have said something other than the giraffe.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I don't like giraffes. I don't dislike them, but it came to my mind. So something you guys do is like manipulating people to think about giraffes.
Okay, good to know. I didn't know that. I appreciate that. Because we're like, what is it about giraffes?
Yeah, they're definitely not even close to my top 10. And I thought like maybe I should say giraffe. So I don't know why.
Yeah.
We'll commission a study on that, get to the bottom of why. I think a list too of like ranking. Mm-hmm. Sports after all, so let's be competitive. So maybe we should have like a list like Top Gear or something. That's fun. So this has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate your time today. So I know from the Department of Sport Management, the College of HHP, and all of our students, our faculty, alumni, we really appreciate your insight and your thoughtful responses with respect to your profession in the fitness realm. So, and we hope that our students will reach out to you in some capacity moving forward and continue to engage in these conversations. But I know this is going to be a very useful tool for all of our students, our faculty, like I said, in understanding your career and your career trajectory and your institutional organization and where you're going and where the industry is going. So that's been very helpful today. Thank you. So with that said, please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at All Things UFSPM. We are your host, Brian Avery.
And Shelley Lyle.
And we like to close this out, Ed, with
our
Go
Gator
Gators.
Comp.
Yes.
Go Gators.